Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Salem by Night, where we play Vampire the Masquerade set in 1984, Salem, Oregon. I'm the storyteller, Will Cabrera, and I am joined by a young man who has had the distinction in his own household of winning Best Dad 7 years in a row. He is one of the podcasters on Mount Geekmore, and you can see him doing outlandish and amazing feats of blaster shooting on our Friday streams for Star Wars Out in the Dark. Everyone, please welcome Jeff to our vampire story game. Hello,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. I am much appreciated.
Yeah,
I,
pleasure.
I, I almost lost 1 year, Father of the Year. It was a close race, but I ended up coming out on top.
Yeah, no, I remember those that year. It was touch and go for a second.
It was touch and go.
Uh,
It was touch and go,
but
but
I'm
I made it.
glad
I
I'm
made
glad
it.
that the votes came in your favor.
Much appreciated.
So for those viewers that have seen you on Star Wars Out in the Dark, you
Hmm.
play a little character, a little kind of meek character named Silas Winchester. Uh,
That is
how
correct.
how is Silas different from Melvin?
Melvin's a lot less outspoken. Um, he will speak his mind when he needs to, but Melvin very much prefers to be the observer as opposed to be the initiator of action per se.
Mm,
Like, where Silas is quick to his gun, uh, Melvin wants to know more than anybody in the room,
mm,
and he knows that a lot of times violence isn't the way to get to that,
that's true.
but
That's
but
very
it can
true.
be.
Especially now that you are living an unlife. So, uh, like I said, we start the game in 1984. You are sitting as you have always been, just at the far end of the Lucky Dime Diner when your the appointment that had been set for you walks in, which is Sheriff Harvey Green. He comes in with a kind woman. You can smell it immediately that she is not part of Kindred Society. They talk a bit about, her husband, what he's going through, what the family's going through. There is an issue that has led him to go to the hospital. And before he arrived, you had been taking in the sights of the diners that are coming in and out, listening to whatever music is slowly being pumped out of the small radio that the cook is listening to in the kitchen. And that's when you hear Joe Cocker's Up Where We Belong. And although you have not spent a lot of time listening to modern music, something about the slow piano, the words, that just kind of takes you back to 1943. And far from Salem, you are sitting in a diner not unlike this one, uh, but definitely in a very different setting. It is winter, there is snow, it is late January, and you are up to your eyeballs in case files. There has been a lot of action recently, and among them is uh, the whole race of trying to get the crime boss Lawrence Mangano. Uh, you know, the whole work that Tony Accardo is doing, trying to pave the way for a hostile takeover, some would say. And You have been slowly working your way to second detective in charge of the case itself, and it's been rough. The the snow, the cold outside, and the little bit of heat that emanates from your coffee doesn't really do anything to warm you up. And then we fast forward to the year after. You're still in that diner, still sitting with a caseload of folders, and no real work has been done to get Mangano or Ricardo. And you're starting to lose hope. You know, slowly you've lost detectives on the case. Some have just decided to back out and pursue other goals. Some have just decided that their best interests lay elsewhere. And so it is down to you and maybe four others that you trust, including the lead detective. And as we push through the year of sacrifices and hardship and the question of whether or not this is somebody that can be taken down, there's a break that happens close to October. The air is crisp again. The heat of the summer is dissipating into the wings, and as winter gets ready to take the stage once more, we see Melvin on a crisp October 31st, and instead of being out or at home with his wife, he is following a lead down an alley in Southside Chicago where he knows he shouldn't be. And there's a voice in your gut screaming for you not to be here. But the informant has been good. He has checked out before, and he swears he has something that will bring Mangano down. And as you show up to the site of the exchange, 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, and there's no sign of the CI of yours. And that's when that little voice goes from a kind of urgent whisper to a straight out scream. And before you can leave, you are descended upon by what you can only imagine is someone who stands to gain more than you stand to lose from this exchange. And you are beaten, and you've had some licks before. You're a tough cop. You grew up in Chicago. You weren't always the sporty kind, so you've had to fend for yourself in one way, shape, or form. But this is merciless. This is straight up almost more than personal. And you can hear bones breaking, you can feel ligaments and muscles bend and snap in ways they're not supposed to. And one of the hardest things to think about is not how to bring any of these men to justice. Even as the little glimpses you get from the street lamp shine on their faces, and the little glimpses of their faces that you burn into your memory, the first thought isn't how to get revenge or how to bring them to justice. Your first thought is Patricia. It's your mother, and beyond anything else, it is just, what are you going to do if this goes the wrong way? And as that thought kind of lingers in the head like a floating refugee on the sea of terror that is currently making up your mind, everything stops. There's a heavy sound as one of your assailants is just rocketed away, thrown, flung almost 30 feet in one direction. A second one is just broken over the length of the street lamp that was providing some light. And your savior looks to be this black-skinned little man who maybe at best is topping 5'2", 5'3", and he's throwing these dock workers, these massive burly men, like they were pancakes, like wet noodles against the wall. And you see that the last one, the third assailant, pulls out a knife, switchblade, and it just goes flying right into your savior's midsection. And he doesn't stop. Even with a knife sticking out of him, he still manages to throw all of these three men into such a disarray that you hear them scrambling, and you can almost hear the whimpering fear in their breathing as they run from the scene. There's a moment where the savior, this long coat wearing black man, looks down at you, and you see this horrible visage of a face, a monstrous kind of mockery of what had been a face before. You see that there is this very thick upper lip that is just wrapped in what looks to have been at some point this very fine mustache that just kind of curls out and upwards and in every single direction but down, and just makes it look like this furry caterpillar of a thing on his mouth. Very light beard. His skin is kind of been swallowed up into the skull. The eyes themselves have kind of sunken in, and there is a kindness in them, even though the rest of him looks monstrous and frightening. So much so that there is a moment where, as he turns you around to check on you, you do kind of recoil from him. And he nods at you, understanding. He takes off his cap to reveal this very gnarled and misshapen head that kind of extends up out of his forehead and into the back of his head. And with a very soft voice, he just looks down and he's like, I understand. I know what this must look like to you, and I'm sorry. Can't do anything about that. but I can help with these three. Do you want to get revenge for what's been done to you?
Yeah. Yes.
What's your name?
Melvin. Melvin Wright.
All right, Melvin. I'm gonna help you. Come on. And as he reaches down, there's a moment where he wraps his hand around the lower part of your chest, wrapping it around towards your back, and you can feel the broken ribs. They've done a number on you. And as he tries to help you up, you wince in pain. You let out a small groan, and then he nods at you one more time, and he's like, "I know, it hurts, and it's gonna hurt a little bit more before it gets better." And as you hear some fireworks going off and some children laughing in the distance, you can hear sirens starting to overtake the fireworks. You still hear the sound of the three footsteps running from you, and then in an instant, all of that washes away. And there's a moment where you kind of look and you see the side of this black man's head just in your periphery, too close for what could be anything except a romantic gesture. And there's a moment where you feel something warm kind of trickling down the clavicle here and into your chest, and as you feel it starting to become cold, the farther away from its source it goes, the world of color and bombastic explosions above you begins to fade to black. And there's a long moment where the only thing you see is Patricia. You see your mother, Virginia, and then you see Peggy, and this triumvirate of women that have helped you become the man that you are. And there's a moment where you just see Peggy in the glory of motherhood. You see her raising a little boy who becomes a man and then follows in your footsteps, and you see him wearing the blue uniform, the gold badge, and just making a difference in the Chicago streets. And as you see that, and there's a bit of pride that washes over you, you take in a sharp breath as you feel this cold liquid wash down your throat, into your gullet, into your stomach. And there's something about it that tastes wrong, but it quickly becomes very right. The taste that you had remembered for this quickly washes away as you understand that this is the nourishment that you require now, that this is the only thing that will sustain you moving forward. And as he removes his wrist from your mouth and he licks his self-inflicted
Sorry.
wound closed, as long as you're okay,
Yeah.
he points in a direction and you notice that all the colors have become muted to you. Everything now has a very old kind of filter around the world. But he points in one direction. He's just like, that's the way the leader went. I can get the other two for you. I think you're going to want to do this one on your own. Don't be
So
afraid.
am I standing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He no longer has to help you get up. You can actually feel all your musculature and your bones kind of have reset. And as you stand up, he helps you kind of like brush away the dirt and the dust and whatnot. And he looks at you and he kind of nods. And you see him put on his hat again. And he looks over at you. He's like, you're going to want to hide that moving forward. But I'll meet you back here if you want. And then you see him almost with a smile that should bring terror to your heart. He ripples out of existence. Like he, as he steps away, it's like he steps into what is just this pool of invisible water, and as it washes over him, he just vanishes. And you don't hear him, but you know that he has rushed after these other two. Slowly, as you kind of look around and try to acclimate yourself to what's just happened to you, there's a sharp pain that rings from your stomach up your throat and to the back of your mind, and you just hear this guttural bestial voice in the back of your mind just, it's time to hunt. And as you start looking around, you can smell the fear from all three of these guys. And the leader in particular has a spectacular stink to him. Do you chase?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's have you roll a investigation and composure. And see what happens.
So how do I do both of those?
All right. So at an investigation, you see that every skill has a die button. Like
Yeah.
like a little D20 button. When you hit the button, it'll ask you what
Oh, got it.
what
Okay.
trait you want to attach to it.
Got it.
Yeah. And then it'll ask you for a modifier, and the modifiers only come into effect if you have a specialty. Oh. Critical roll. So, sure enough, you book to this, down these streets and up an alley, and you hook around, and walking away from you in a hurried rush, you see what has been detailed to you as the leader of these three men. And you can see that some of the people that are walking down the street towards you look at you, and then they quickly turn and step over to the other side of the street. One woman kind of brings her hand up to her mouth in disgust. But those are passing memories for you right now. You don't even remember the color of her hair. You don't remember what color suit the man was wearing. All you remember right now is this man and the silhouette of him as he walks from pool of light to pool of light. How would you like to bring him to justice? Are you bringing him to justice?
So how far ahead of me is he?
He is currently about 30 feet in front of you.
I'm gonna try to. Is he moving? He's moving at a fast pace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to move a little bit faster than how he is,
Okay.
and close the gap on him.
Sure. You hear that voice in the back of your head that excuse me, that is new to you, and you can feel it. There's something familiar about it, or something that will become familiar about it, and it's just, let me help you. And as you hear that, you can feel your muscles tighten, and there's a bit more power behind your strides now. You can feel that your muscles are way more elastic and way more pulling than they have been. There's a wiriness to you that wasn't there before, and you are not as easily tired as you should be. You notice that even though you're breathing heavy from having chased after this man, there's no kind of mist emanating from your mouth.
Okay. I when I feel the thing with my muscles, I kind of speed up more.
Yep.
And once I catch up to him, I guess let me know.
Yeah, easily. You catch up to him in a matter of seconds.
Okay. Well, I run and I stop in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do it in a way that I'm run past him, and I stop where he has no choice but to bump into me.
Oh, he tries to avoid you as best as possible, and as he bumps into you, he looks into your face, and he just doubles over and falls back in shock and fear. It is pure terror that you can see in his face.
Can I try to catch him as he's falling back and grab him by his shirt?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's what I want to do. I want to, as he's falling back and reeling back, I want to grab him and catch him and pull him close to me and be like, "Were you going somewhere?"
He is full of terror, and his eyes are darting everywhere except your face, but he keeps landing on it, and he just looks at you. He's like, "How? You should be dead."
And you will be dead if you don't tell me who set me up.
There's a moment where, right in the middle of your threat, the voice chimes in and is just like, yeah, he doesn't deserve to live. Show him what it is to cross an officer of the law. You can.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. What do you want to do?
No, I was gonna say I'm gonna grab him, and if there's a wall next to me, I'm gonna just toss him into the wall. I'm gonna pin him against the wall.
Easy enough. He is trying to kind of pull your hands away, but you notice that with your arms fully extended and your fists wrapped around his collar, they're like iron bars, pinning him against this wall. And you start to notice that behind the fear, there's this throbbing that you can feel through your fingertips and through the backs of your fingers as you're kind of holding onto him through his skin. You can feel the heart beating. You can see where some of the veins and some of the arteries are traveling up and down his neck, where they would end up on his face. It is almost terrifying to you how this sudden scientific knowledge is present to you, but but you also notice that it's not an image that you're pulling from memory. Like, this isn't a image you saw in a book and that you're kind of translating onto his body. Like, this is his network of veins. This is his network of arteries. This is, you know exactly how fast his heart is pumping. You know where the blood is going and coming from. It is terrifying. And in the moment of pure adrenaline, you just hear that voice. He has to pay. Make him pay.
I push him. I pull him back off the wall, and I go right by his ear, and I just go, "Your heart's beating a mile a minute. It's almost like you've seen a ghost." And I slam him back into the wall.
There's like, a moment
who set me up
as you pull him in and you smell the musk of his skin, and you hear the heartbeat now matching the rhythm that you feel through your fingertips, that you stop mid-sentence to lick your lips. And as your tongue slides out of your mouth, you can feel that there are these two longer protrusions where your canines would be. And as you kind of lick the fang, it is predominantly longer. It is protruding a good length more than what it used to. Make a willpower roll for me, please. And you'll notice that there's two different die buttons on willpower.
Yeah.
The reroll one is because you can use a willpower point to reroll up to 3 non-hunger dice anytime you have a regular roll. But it does cost you a superficial point of willpower damage. The actual willpower button is what the willpower roll would be for.
Okay.
Three. Possible critical. So
Sorry, my son opened the door.
Yeah, it's fine. There's a moment where you can imagine yourself sinking your teeth into this man's throat and ripping it open with your bare teeth. But you slam him back against the wall and you ask him who set you up. And he shakes his head. He's like, there's no way I'm going to rat out. No, you're not getting that from me. And as he says that, what do you want to do?
No, I was going to say I shift my grip from his collar to just his throat.
Okay.
And I'm holding him by his throat now.
All right. You can feel the difference in how cold you are compared to how warm he is. There's a distinct difference. And it feels inviting to you, the warmth of his throat. And as you grab him, as you shift your grip, you can see one of the other two suddenly land to his right, and then the other one lands to his left. And you can see that both of them have had their throats ripped out. There's blood still kind of popping out of the open wounds, and as you smell that aroma that will become your new life's fragrance, it is almost like a shark in chum. And there's a moment where that voice again comes up and it's just like, oh, smell that. Do it.
And when the voice says that, I kind of nod to myself, and I grab him by the throat, and I bring him down, slamming him into the body, one of the bodies next to him, and I go, "Did you want to rethink that question, that statement? Who set me up?"
You hear the voice behind you of your black savior. You have a lot more mental fortitude than I did. I gotta hand it to you. I don't know if I could have been asking questions like you are. And the guy in your grip is like, I can't. No.
I start squeezing his throat.
Like, he starts choking.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
Make another willpower roll for me.
I'm gonna fail it eventually.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, there it is.
There it is. And boom goes the dynamite.
And boom goes the dynamite. And sure enough, you see that he kind of tries to grab your hand and slide himself out. He reaches out towards either one of his sides, and he ends up just smearing his hands in blood. And as he kind of wipes your face in the blood of what were his friends, that scent now becomes so overpowering, so close to your nostrils, and the little bit that he gets on your lips and on your mouth and in your mouth just drive you into a feeding frenzy. And before you know it, there's a twist as you kind of turn his head 45 degrees, and then there's the lunge forward as you sink your teeth, your newfound fangs, into his throat, and you feel that lifeblood of his starting to go down your throat into your gullet, your new undead gullet. And there is there's a satisfaction in what you're doing to him, not as a cop, not as a police officer, but as a human. You can see the faces of the other two that had just maybe 20 minutes ago been so pleased with themselves to beat you within an inch of your life, that now that he's sitting here and you're slowly seeing the life ebb out of his eyes, that you feel a little bit of justice being served. Nope. There's this essence that you can feel draining out of him and into you, and for a moment you shudder at the thought of this being the rest of your life. And after a moment of what feels like, I don't know, an hour maybe to you, 2 hours, who knows how long it takes for you. It couldn't have been scientifically more than 15 minutes, more than 10, more than 5, honestly. But you feel that there's nothing left to take. And the body slumps as you let go of it. And it falls next to the other two. And for a moment, you're sitting there, crouched over this man and his two associates, who are all dead, all vicious victims of what happened tonight. And the only thing you can think of is that this is the way it had to play out. And as you stand up, there's a hand, very soft hand, that comes up onto your shoulder. And you hear this black man kind of step around, and he's just like, now, you're going to have a lot of questions. I understand that. And I want you to know that I got answers for you. Whether you like them or not is going to be a completely different thing. I'm going to need your help to get rid of them, though. You know, we can toss them in the river. Shouldn't be that much of an issue. It's better than they deserve, honestly. No.
It seems like I'm in your debt, sir. So,
well, given that that I've taken a thing from you, I think we're not out of the woods yet as far as who owes who, and I can tell you that I will try to help you as much as possible moving forward. You can call me Mick. And you see him grab the two that he tossed over to you by their legs, and he starts dragging them over to the river. He's like, if you could grab
mine.
Yeah, if you could grab your friend, I'd be real neighborly of you. And as you get to the river, he easily tosses one of them at a time, just a good 15, 16 feet into the river. You kind of toss yours right there where the embankment is, and you hear the heavy splashing thud, and then he kind of lulls out with the current. And you see Mick look over at you, and he's like, alright, my abode is not too far from here. Oh. Nope. Somebody's at the door.
Yeah, somebody's at my house. It's Mickey.
Yeah. He's bringing you a pet.
Oh.
But as
Brandon's gonna be jealous.
Yeah, as you follow him, he takes you to a sewer grate. And as he descends, there's a moment where you really question the choices that have led you to this moment. But he calls up to you from down there. He's like, come on, it only smells for a little bit.
I just kind of shake my head, and I'm like, okay. And I just start walking in. I trudge in.
Yeah. You follow him down into the sewer tunnels, and you're both squatting, and you're making your way through the tunnels. It feels like a maze to you. There's lefts and rights, and you descend and ascend, and you come up to a set of ladders, and one of them leads up into this really warm and quaint living space. There's a cot, a small bookshelf that has surprisingly collections of works. You see poets from the the English Renaissance. You see different versions of the Bible. Uh, there's Shakespearean folios there, and you notice that there is a couple of doors and there's no windows. But he motions to the cot and he's like, "Take a seat. I'll be back with my own chair." And he goes into the door closest to the stairway, to the ladder leading down to the sewers. And as he comes back with a chair, he closes the grate, kind of locks it in place, and puts the chair over it, and sits down. And he looks at you. He's like, "All right, you said your name was Melvin. Melvin, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've done a thing that you might never forgive me for, but I feel like I've been watching you for some time, and I know you've been doing some good for the city. So I think this might help more than hinder you. But what do you know about vampires?"
I mean, they're afraid of garlic and crosses and holy water.
And you see him laugh, and he's just like, "I mean, some of us are, yeah. I mean, are you suddenly afraid of garlic and crosses?"
Forgive me, Mickey. Did you say us?
Yeah, us. And you see him pull up his shirt where he got stabbed, and you can see the stab wound is still there. And slowly you see him kind of concentrate. He closes his eyes, and you can see the skin begin to reknit itself. The musculature, the dermis, the epidermis, just kind of all seals back up. And he's like, "Yeah, us. You, me, and the rest of us. I personally like garlic. I think it's a fine thing to add to any dish in moderation. And as you can see from my collection of Bibles, I have no qualms with the Lord as of right now. Although I do sometimes question whether or not this is a curse that he has passed on to me, or the other guy." And he kind of points down.
I kind of look confused, and I guess I in my head, I didn't fully grasp that I was drinking this person's blood. It was just felt natural.
Yeah, just felt natural.
And I'm like, so would that explain why I had no problem with draining that piece of shit?
Yeah. I mean, that is the lifeblood, pun intended, of our existence. We are beholden to it for all time in memoriam, or whatever they say. And as he says that, you hear, and there is this slim, long black cat that slithers into the room from the other room where he pulled the chair from. And he looks down and he scratches its head. And he's like, "I hope, I mean, it doesn't matter now you're dead, but I hope you weren't allergic to cats. Otherwise, I'd hate to put Aloysius outside."
I don't think I am. I haven't really had any effect from any in the past.
Yeah, that's good. Go on, introduce yourself. And you see he looks down at the cat, and the cat meows up at him, and then just slithers over to you and just sits down next to your foot.
I stick my hand out to pet it.
you see that it reaches up and puts its paw in your hand, almost like you were going to give it a handshake.
That's a mighty cordial cat you've got here.
Yeah, yeah. He's been with me for 10 years now. He's taking some time to make a right gentleman out of him. And the cat kind of meows at him.
So, what do I do now? I should get home to Peggy.
Well, that's gonna be an issue. You can't live a normal life now that you're what you are. You understand that? Like, there's no way for us to intermingle with humanity as it is. I think it'd be best if we faked your death to give your wife some closure. Your family some closure. Otherwise, they might go looking for you, for some time, and that'll make things a little more difficult for you trying to make a name for yourself. But there's a society of us, there's a world that you belong to now, and we can help you if you let us. I know that as your maker, the rules say that you're beholden to me until such a time when you are introduced to the rest of society and you are deemed worthy to be a member of. But I'm not a fan of rules, as you can see, and he kind of motions to his skin color. Not real keen on them. I'll be happy to help you understand your place in the world and the powers that have trickled down through the blood. But don't feel like you are beholden to me in any way, shape, or form. I live that life, and I don't want to wish that on anyone. And you see him look away.
I need to make sure that Patricia and Peggy and my mother, that they're taken care of. I can't just leave them. The mob is, as you can tell,
right,
has it out for me. I was onto something.
I get you, and I have friends in the police department, so we can easily create a trust fund for you and for other police officers that might go missing in the line of combat, in the line of duty, as a result of combat with a mob and things like that. That shouldn't be too difficult to grease the wheels. I also have a couple of boons that are owed to me by some of the Ventru in the city, so I know that we can pass that along and cut through any red tape that comes up. That shouldn't be an issue. So monetarily speaking, I think your family can be taken care of. But I understand. I understand if you want to keep an eye on them. We, like I showed you before, we have the ability to, shall we say, hide our existence from mankind if we so please. And you see him again just ripple out of existence. But then you hear him like he hasn't moved. This, of course, is one of our bread and butters. It's one of our tried and true abilities as far as what our clan of vampire is, what our bloodline has developed. So it shouldn't be too difficult for you to pick up. No.
So
and you see him.
You said our clan.
Yeah, our bloodline.
Oh, so there's other bloodlines.
There's other, yeah. It's like imagine Imagine ethnicities. Each bloodline has its own pros and cons. This, and he kind of points to his face, and then he points to your face. This is our ethnicity. This is our calling card. The curse of vampirism deforms us, you know, and I'm pretty sure that that's not at all how you used to sound, but here we are. And you see the cat jump
There
off
is
his
something.
lap.
There is something a little different in my voice, but I, as long as my family's taken care of, you to my life or whatever this is.
Say that again.
You've given me the tool. Oh, that I said you saved my life or whatever this is. You've given me clearly some kind of tools to, and then he just keeps coughing to finish what I started.
Yeah. Well, I have the space here for another one, so you're free to stay here if you like. At least until we get you up on your feet again and make you a member of our society. Do you have any weapons that I should know of? Do you have any changes that might have occurred to you given the sudden change in livelihood? Do you feel different?
I mean, I feel my muscles feel way more powerful.
Yeah, that should wear off in a bit. And sometimes under duress, the beast will rouse the blood a bit and help you empower yourself. It's one of the few things that we have access to now, being the supernatural creatures that we are.
As opposed to weapons. And we didn't really talk about this, but I'm assuming I'm carrying at least like a 45 or something as a detective.
Yeah, of course.
So I just open up the coat and I'm just point to the 45.
Oh, that's standard issue. You'll find that they're helpful against mortals. They're not gonna do as much to people like us anymore. And you see him go over into the other side room, and you hear a drawer being opened, and then the scrape of something heavy. And as he comes back in, you see that in his right hand, is a beautifully kept Colt revolver. And he kind of hands it over to you, and you see that it is a Peacemaker. One of the first 6 guns, 6 shooters. And
Beauty.
that's been with me since just after what happened to me. I tend not to use it unless I really have to, but discretion is the better part of valor, as you've seen. And after you look at it, he takes it back, and you see him spin it a little bit, almost like the scene in Tombstone. But there's no holster on his side, and when he goes to holster it, he just kind of holds it in his hand, and he looks down at it for a moment, then he looks up at you. It's like a different time, and he goes back into the room. He comes back.
When he comes back out, I'm like, given the the amount of time we probably have at this point, I'd love to hear those stories someday.
Sure. Sure. Hell, some of them are even happy, have happy endings. Most don't, though. You'll you'll see that most of our stories don't have happy endings anymore. And the rest of the night is spent kind of shooting the shit and him explaining the rules of vampirism to you. Talks about the traditions very lightly. He doesn't really go into them.
Okay.
He talks about the Camarilla and how there is a faction that has existed since the Dark Ages that calls himself the Sabbat, that wish to rule over mankind instead of living with them, living hidden with them. And he says that given the time that vampires have existed alongside humanity, there's other rumors that he's heard of that are just, he's never been able to verify. But he does tell you about some of the other things that exist out in the world, like lupines, and how there's some people who claim that magic is real, and that the clan Tremere comes from those people predominantly. And then as he feels and you start to notice that you become lethargic towards dayrise, he goes over to the other room and he opens the door. And inside you see that there are 2 cots, and one of them looks like it was really well used, but it doesn't have anything on it. It's kind of laid bare, but the other one does have a folded blanket, a comforter, and a kind of pillow. And he motions to that one, and he's like, you can feel free to use that. We're not much for comfort anymore, but I can guarantee you that no sun is going to get in here. So, in worst case scenario, there's always the sewer exit, so.
Again, I thank you.
Yeah. And he latches the door open, and he's like, here, so you see that there's nothing, I'm not trying to hide anything from you. He does close the other one, and he does lock it. He's like, this one's my things, and I'm not much in there, really, to be honest. It's just things that remind me of where I come from. And you see him sit down on the cot, on his cot. It's like, you need anything, you let me know.
I nod to him again, and I just go sit on the cot, I just go quietly and sit down.
Sure. April 13th, 1945 sees the birth of Colleen, your daughter, who brings a new joy and a new sense of fear to your unlife. Shortly after Colleen's birth, your father is found dead in the river, a victim of foul play, and your mother becomes a widow with Patricia and Peggy moving in to take care of her. Soon after, Patricia is married and decides that with Peggy taking care of your mom, that it is time for her to start her own family, and she decides to move. And after a few years, she finally settles down in Denver, Colorado. But we jump again, and throughout all this time, Mick, or Mickey as he has become known later on, excuse me, he comes into a bad situation with some of the people he had working for him in the police department and some of the other offices as the mob really starts to take over Chicago. And so he ends up leaving for the West Coast. And he sends messages every so often. You know, he is in Albuquerque, he is in Redmond, he is in San Francisco, and close to 1970, you get one from Portland. Says that there's some interesting opportunities in Salem, Oregon. That if you want, he can use some of his remaining contacts in Chicago to help get your family transferred. Should you want it, but he's going to be going to Salem, and he hopes that you can join him there. And that was in 1973. By 1975, you get another message that he is in dire need of assistance, and that he has already made preparations for your daughter to be named the first female sheriff of a territory south of Salem, Oregon. It's one of the best moves that could have possibly happened to an otherwise stuck at a desk beat cop that she had become. And like you figured, she jumps at the opportunity. And so she leaves her mother and takes her husband and her two children, they're twins, and moves to Salem, Oregon. And this is about the third or fourth real crossroad that Melvin has had to kind of choose which track to follow. And so now I ask, because this one is important, do you stay in Chicago like you have been, or do you follow your daughter to Salem?
If I'm certain that my mother's arrangements are made, that she's watched over, then I'll follow her over there.
There is a Nosferatu that you have befriended that has some stake, for pun intended, in the city. And although she isn't a powerful figure as far as like the Primogen or the Immortal Council is concerned, she is someone that people go to. She is somebody that instead of the Nosferatu Primogen, like they will sometimes go to her first. She's a better source of information and verified information than some of the other Nosferatus. She is somebody that you've kind of befriended in Mickey's absence, and she is somebody that will keep her word. If she says she's going to look after your family, she will. She is also the one that helped you come to terms with trying not to feed from humans, and she was the one that helped you find and kind of sniff out farms that are safe for feeding, and how to do it professionally on your own. But she's also the one that taught you that in a pinch, a pet store is a great kind of blood bank for people like you and her. And in one such kind of night out of saving animals from the commercial kind of life that they would have led. Uh, this is where you find your one kind of static is not the word, but the one kind of anchor, a fetter to remind you of Chicago no matter where you go. And this is that long, plump sausage of of a sable ferret that you have come to call Betty D, after Betty Davis. And having made Betty D into a familius, she is somebody that will always be by your side. And after the years that you've had to kind of develop your disciplines, and the years that you've had with Betty D, you understand now what Aloysius was for Mickey, as this ferret has become your familius. And there is a kind of frightening intelligence that comes from ghouling an animal. So she is still spunky and mischievous, as all ferrets tend to be, but there's also this intelligence that is present, almost childlike, but it is.
Don't forget she's sassy too.
Yeah, but it is wrapped up in a sassy package. But you have also trained her to just kind of lay draped around your neck like a fur trimming for your coat. And most people will never give her a second glance, and it's only when you kind of have her awake or she is interested in a topic that she will kind of stir and make her presence known. But alone in the comfort of your haven, she is sassy and spoiled, and this princess of a familius to you. And really, it is someone that has kind of grown at the same rate as your daughter. So she's about maybe half the age that your daughter is. So you've had Betty D for about 16, 17 years, well past the livelihood for any ferret. But she's still young and spry as she was the day you met her and fell in love with her. But we come to 1979, October 5th. It is Elysium at the Roaring Twenties studio and dance club that belongs to the current Prince of Salem. And he is missing. He is not present for the Elysium. Even his ghoul is hard-pressed for information as to his whereabouts. And though the prince is a Bruja, he fancies himself a Ventru and has tried to run the city with an iron grip of soft words and hard intimidations that have led to more conflict than not. there is a primogen for the Nosferatu clan named Leonardo Romano, and Mickey, Malcolm, the Snake Thatcher, Norbert the Face Banks, Mikhail the Red Vostkov, Tallulah the Tulip, Lincoln, that's her last name, and Gerald the Rocks Bander kind of make up the Nosferatu of the city, along with Mickey, who has earned the nickname the Mouse Douglas. But in the time that you've been in the city, you've helped Mickey kind of keep a firm hold on his part of the city, his quadrant that he should be in charge of. And Gerald has, since you have arrived, become lax about West Salem, which is his territory. So much so that any leeway the Gangrel had with the Lupines over West Salem has kind of laxed, and there's been a bit of conflict that has bled over because of anarchs that have kind of become emboldened by the fact that there is no real presence in West Salem. So much so that information got leaked to the Primogen from a source that found Gerald being in league with the Anarchs to try and take over the city from the Prince. And so, in a vote without the Prince present, the Primogen voted to have Gerald greet the sun. And as people were allowed to hear the recording of the audio recording of what that sounded like, no one has taken up the offer. So slowly it has become a situation where Mickey has now taken over West Salem, and he brought you in to help with that. And so now, as Joe Cocker's voice trails off and the final notes of Up Where We Belong land, we see the diner called the Lucky Dime sitting there with a few patrons. The conversation that Harvey Green and this human woman were having wraps up nicely, and they stand. He kisses her warmly, as a family member does, and then begins to escort her out the door. From outside, you see two shapes emerge in the darkness that you remember seeing being introduced at last night's Elysium. And for the life of you, given that it is almost barely 1 o'clock in the morning, you wonder what possibly could have led them to this situation, because the male in the group looks like he's been bleeding from his face. And as you look out and Walking on Sunshine begins to play on the radio, this is where we'll pick up the next session, and where hopefully Albert Frost and Connie Eastworm will get to introduce themselves to Melvin Wright and Betty D. So,
Yep.
do you have
That
any,
makes sense. And by the way,
questions
my
or
voice
concerns?
got better. My voice got better after
After all of that,
as time went on,
as
because
time
I
went
got
on?
murdered. Yeah, because I got massacred with a bat. So
Yeah, it
even
happens. It
even becoming
happens.
a vamp. Yeah.
So, I would like to thank everybody that came out tonight and watched our session 0 and got to see Melvin Wright introduce himself to the world of darkness. As always, please wear your masks, keep your distance, wash your hands, stay safe, and if you have any qualms about reaching out because of the holiday season or because of the new year or whatever is troubling you, just know that there are people who are qualified to help you. Do not be afraid to get help if you need it. Reach out to friends, family members, anyone, and just know that you are not alone. And we will be here every week, Monday and Friday, and soon starting on a Wednesday. But again, be safe, and we will see you next week.